So guys, in the next section, I'm going to be really walking you through some of the key benefits around Oracle supply chain planning compared to JD Edwards. And it's going to be focusing on, I would say, six of the critical areas that, I've seen with organizations that we work with really enhance their operations with. So jumping through, each of these. So one of the number one, I would say, significant advantage when we think of Oracle supply chain planning over JD Edwards is the ability for it to incorporate constraints. These constraints could be capacities, materials, labor, and those are brought into the planning process. Whereas when you run JD Edwards planning, right, MRP, it's an unconstrained plan. So what that means is it can lead to unrealistic outcomes, right? It could be way over capacity in certain situations. So with cloud, you're able to create, a more accurate and achievable plan by ultimately reducing risk and, not over promising or under delivering to those customers, right? So you're accounting for these constraints from the outset. Operations are more aligned because you're utilizing actual limitations within your organization when you're running your plan, which is going to result in improved efficiencies and at the end of the day, higher customer satisfaction. Another one is when we think of what if analysis. I hear this a lot from JD Edwards customers. With cloud, you have the ability to simulate various scenarios. These scenarios could be fluctuations in demand, in supply disruptions that you may have, right? Hey, a supplier calls, I'm not going to get my inventory to you on time, or maybe shifts in the market, right? One industry's down, one industry's up, whatever that might be. And you can run simulations to say, hey, if this happens, what are some potential options that I have? What are my impact to my operations? In JD Edwards, you really can't do that, right? We see some JD Edwards customers maybe run a plan in a lower environment to do what if type simulations, but it's very, very difficult to get there, right? So by using this analysis in Fusion, you can proactively address those issues and also enable better decision making by, finding these problems and stopping them before they ultimately escalate. So managing demand at risk is a different concept than I say how it works inside of JD Edwards. So what this feature ultimately allows you to do is to pinpoint disruptions and identify areas where demand may not be met due to various risks, right? So I have a demand that could be a forecast, could be a customer sales order, it could be a safety stock level, whatever that might be, right? Whereas in JD Edwards, you don't know a lot of times until it's too late, right? You don't know which specific demands am I going to have challenges with until it's too late. Whereas within Fusion, it's going to give you proactive steps to say, these are your demands at risks, and these are the different options that you have to mitigate those risks to make sure that your service levels remain consistent and your customer orders get to those customers on time. So it's giving you a very unique insight as to where your challenges are from a demand perspective. S&OP planning or sales and operations planning, this is a terminology or feature that really doesn't live at all in JD Edwards. So what in Fusion this is doing is it's combining your sales information, your production information, your financial data, and it's ensuring that all of those objectives or plans I have align with my business goals. So in JD Edwards, you really don't have this integration, right? You have some budgeting on one side and the finance side. You can run MRP, you can do forecasting, but there's no process to really bring all those together and create a strategic strategy or plan. Whereas in cloud, you kind of have this comprehensive approach to S&OP, which ensures that your supply chain plans are both feasible and they align with where you're going from an organizational perspective. Analytics, I think of this as kind of a bigger picture view, and you'll see it in the demonstration as we progress into it in a little bit. Cloud just looks a lot more friendly from an analytical perspective. So for those of you that are using things like Power BI or Reports Now, very analytical features, cloud has that directly built into its capabilities, which really surpasses what JD Edwards has out of the box, right? You can do BI Publisher, you can do some one view analysis, but those really don't normally get to where you want to go from an analytics perspective. And it's not just visuals, right? These analytics can also improve forecast accuracies. They can help operational efficiencies. They can help with cost savings in terms of responding to changes in the market and analyzing big sets of data, right? All of those allow you to kind of gain that competitive advantage against your customers to make sure you're doing good planning and precise planning. The last one is the ability to run multiple plans simultaneously. So this is a distinct differentiator. So in JD Edwards, most of you guys know, right? You run a plan, you run MRP, let's just say. It's a single plan. Can't run another plan, compare, whereas in Oracle, you can run multiple plans and compare the different scenarios side by side, right? So this allows you to evaluate potential outcomes from a specific strategy, to determine, which path is bringing you to the goal to get to that objective that you're looking for, right? Whether it's things like maximizing efficiency, reducing costs, managing risk. By having multiple plans at your disposal, you're always prepared to adapt when certain situations happen. In the demo coming up, you'll see a situation where we're comparing an unconstrained plan and a constrained plan, and how those can be matched up against each other to see what is improved. All right, so now that we've explored some of the key benefits, and these are just the high level cliff notes, right? There's lots of things that I'm unfortunately not able to get into today, but now that we've gone through some of those key benefits around SCM, a lot of customers that I speak with really have want to know, how does the data get from JD Edwards to Fusion? What does that look like, right? How do we make sure that we are setting ourselves for success from an operations perspective? So the good news is we have done this type of project many, many times. We've already built the integration out between JD Edwards and Fusion. So it allows us to quickly get the organization get their data in cloud, to where during that implementation, you're leveraging your data versus dummy data, right? So I know many of you have gone through JD Edwards upgrades or JD Edwards implementations, and you remember the 220 red bikes, right? Those don't really help that much when you're trying to train a user. Whereas with our integration, we're able to get that data into Fusion very quickly and really gain familiarity with the organization. So to illustrate how this works, let's really move into kind of the integration process. So I talked about our integration tool. We call it Amplify, and it allows us to connect JD Edwards with Fusion. It ensures that we're grabbing data and smoothly pulling it from JD Edwards to Fusion and then back, right? Fusion back to JDE. So from a mechanics perspective, Amplify really starts by pulling the essential master data, transactional data from JD Edwards into Oracle SCM. This includes inventory levels, production detail, sales orders, historical information, lots and lots of data, right? So that allows Fusion to be up to date with everything that's going on from a supply chain perspective. So I pull that data right into Fusion. Once that data is there, the system processes its recommendations, right? From a simplistic level, if you compare it to JD Edwards, it's running a plan, right? That's a supply plan. And it's going to determine what type of orders do I need based on lots and lots of different characteristics. Could be purchase orders, could be transfer orders, could be work orders. So it's going to generate recommendations based on the algorithms, the analytics that are determined to be the best course to fit those supply chain needs, right? Once this is completed, now I then send that information back to JD Edwards, right? So after Oracle generates these recommendations, Amplify takes that data, right? Takes those orders, whether they're changes to transfer orders or new work orders or new purchase orders or whatever that might be, and sends those back to JD Edwards, right? So that entire process, it's not a situation where you have to do it in cloud and then go into JD Edwards and do the same thing, right? You do all of your planning in Fusion, and then execution still stays the same, right? That's one of the beautiful things about this, is how you receive purchase orders doesn't need to change, right? How you're processing work orders on the floor, or how you're pick, pack, shipping your transfer orders, the execution side of the house doesn't change by going down the path of bolting on SCM. What you are improving or enhancing upon is the planning side, right? To where we're moving to more of a planning organization than, right, fighting as hard as we can every day to make lots and lots of changes. So the execution side stays exactly the same as it would today from an organizational perspective, which kind of allows some familiarity to, you know, the people on the floor or the people in the receiving, to where we're not shaking up ultimately their world. So now that we've covered, you know, how Amplify grabs data, does it, the integration between JD Edwards and Fusion, and then also some of the key differentiators. I always think it's important as well to talk about how every organization's path to implementation is unique when going down this, right? We have a very solid foundation with the integration, but the journey of how you roll out these capabilities, it really varies greatly depending on your business needs, your goals. So let's just very quickly explore some of the different approaches that I've helped organizations to go through when they are bolting on Oracle SCM with JD Edwards. So as we look at this implementation journey, you know, remember, there's no one size fits all approach. Each customer, each organization has a different path, has a different strategy, and we choose the best one that aligns with your business objectives and your operational realities at the end of the day, right? So some companies opt for a big bang approach, right? So maybe you're rolling out supply, demand, S&OP all at the same time, right? So this is rolled out throughout the entire organization. It's beneficial for businesses looking for, I would say, rapid transformation, and it assures that, you know, all parts of that supply chain are synchronized from the outset, right? Other organizations we work with, you know, go more of a facility by facility perspective, right? So starting with one or two of the key locations, maybe a warehouse and a manufacturing facility, or a couple of different manufacturing facilities. And this allows a little bit more of a controlled rollout, controlled implementation, gives you that capability to kind of refine those processes and address issues on a smaller scale before rolling it out to the rest of the organization. And then lastly, some companies choose to do it more by function. So a great example of that is you may start with something like demand planning to gain better insights to what your customers are doing, then gradually introduce something like supply planning or S&OP or some of the other functions. This allows to be a little bit more focused on each individual component before moving on to the next, you know, reducing at the end of the day those complexities and those risks. So whichever path you choose, you know, the key is to tailor the implementation to ensure, you know, the transition is smooth and your team is well equipped to take full advantage of all of the different capabilities that we're ultimately talking about today. So lastly, in this section, before we get into our demo, you know, we've discussed implementation approaches, the integration, key differentiators between JD Edwards and Fusion. One thing to remember too, though, is we're just focusing in on a small portion, I would say, of supply chain management in Fusion, right? We're focusing on supply and demand planning mostly today, but there's lots of other additional products that we see organizations integrate seamlessly with JD Edwards to provide a really comprehensive supply chain solution. You know, a great example of that is Oracle Product Lifecycle Management, right? It helps the entire lifecycle of a product from design to development to retirement, and revving and you know, integrating with your different CAD systems. All of that can be done. Oracle Transportation Management is another great example if you want to optimize your transportation operations. You know, improving visibility and control over all of your logistics, right? All of your trucking, possibly. And then supply chain collaboration could be something where if you want to get more data from maybe a supplier or customers or portals, right? All of that can be done and built within the integration between JD Edwards and Fusion. So these are just some of the key examples when we think of Oracle and the suite. There's lots of other ones, right? But those are the ones that we really see making the most benefit to organizations.